I have received all kinds of gifts from Egypt.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And he said that he's had them for years. Look how beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful, stunning.
His powers are growing.
This just keeps getting better and better.
A good place to begin is how this project came to you. Did you have an audition, or was a script simply titled The Mummy sent directly to you?
The way this movie came about was such a extraordinary lesson from the universe and why it's important to be kind to everyone and how we just never know the repercussions of encountering people in life. I was in LA and my agent sent me to see a general casting with different people. So one of these meetings was the casting director at Universal. It was a general meeting. Her name is Joanna Colbert. And I walked into the office and we just had a really, really wonderful conversation. That was it. And then the day after, I've been offered this movie called The Mummy. I couldn't believe. I had no idea how big this movie was going to be. I don't think any of us knew that they would be such a big hit. And then at the same time, I didn't know that I was walking into such a big film. So, I was kind of new in the industry. So I flew to London and it was all very nice. And then went to Shepperton Studios, which is an iconic studio in the UK. It wasn't until I walked into set that I realized that I was in a big film.
Do you remember what your thoughts were when you saw the words "The Mummy" and you knew obviously it would be maybe a horror movie?
I'm a South American Indian from an indigenous community called Wayu. So I've always had fascination for cultures, traditions, and especially meaning of things, because maybe my parents, my dad worked at UNESCO, so we grew up in France and then Mexico and then went to Venezuela. I always had a fascination for spirituality and history and what everything means. And so when I saw the name The Mummy, I had been in Mexico, visited mummies in Mexico when I grew up there. I didn't really think it was going to be a horror movie or a family movie. All I thought is, oh, I'm going to be able to dig in because that's what I love. That's where my heart and my mind went.
What was your reaction when you're standing around on those Shepperton sets and it looks like a Theban palace?
I could not believe that I was there because, you go into the studios here. I mean, I was just shooting in Warner Brothers this week. And yes, it's very iconic. It's amazing. And I think because you're in Europe, the buildings have different shape and there's so much history itself that you feel that you're walking into a window of time through a very special window where you can see all of it. So that already in itself, I was feeling very honored.
What is the memory that first springs to mind, or what do you really cherish or cling to when you think back on this experience of the first movie?
Well, this was a movie that changed my life and that kind of set the course of my acting career. Up until today, it's just doesn't matter how many projects you've done, you will always be Anck-su-namun. And then when I really is that, David, when I think of The Mummy, I really think is that the importance of kindness and how you just never know. You never know. You're kind to people and you never know that person that you might meet might be looking for somebody. And in that respect, to everyone who's listening to us, assistants are the deal makers. They can make or break something. So be nice to assistants. Be nice because you just not only you never know where they're gonna end, but they really have a lot of power. So just make them feel very special because you just never know where you can end up with them.
And I was impressed and still am when watching the movie by the choice to have ancient Egyptian scenes subtitled. Did you and Arnold work with any Egyptologists or linguists to learn those lines?
Yeah, we worked. They had a linguistic from UCLA,
Mhm.
and we worked with him. And obviously, there isn't a recording of how the sound was. So it's an approximate to what they thought it sounded like. And this was maybe one of the first scenes we shot or something. And then I started screaming, "Eh!" And then Steven goes and we do another take, and I'm, "Eh!" It's really big set. So I'm even already at this point, I screaming so much, I'm starting to lose my voice. And then finally, Stephen kind of calls me on the side and he says, why are you screaming? Ich? I says, Stephen, you said you wanted this to be as authentic as possible. Ich is no. And he said, oh, no, 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 forget it. Just say no. So that was the only time he actually said, no, just keep it normal. Don't scream ich. At this point, I had no voice left. It was, but it was one of those anecdotes. But yeah, we worked with a linguistic, and we worked hard on the dialogue. It wasn't easy, but just like any other acting work, when you are really focusing on what it is that you're trying to achieve through your acting, then the words come easy.
So when you go back and watch either of the Mummy movies and you see your scenes and Arnold's scenes, do you understand? Do you remember enough of the muscle memory? Oh, I know
Yes,
what they're saying without the
yes,
subtitles.
yes. More the Mummy too, because I had a ton of lines in the Mummy too. But yes, I do remember for sure. There's some lines, some classic lines. Like I remember the one with Rachel,
Mm.
where we're fighting and she's on the floor, and I go, "Irihutu, yarara harara haninafiya," or something like that. That was Ben Pi had weighty hout. That was from the first one. So yeah, I have memory in a lot of the lines.
What was the process like of putting on that body paint? And I'd assume you knew that that was in the script and going into it.
David, I knew, but I didn't know it was going to be such a pain in the butt. It took almost 10 hours to get that makeup on. And I had 4 people drawing on my body. And then they did a special chair so I could sit so the paint would not smear, and special shoes. And then I had anywhere between 2 to 4 hours of retouching every day.
I was just going to say, if you're doing 10 hours just putting the makeup on, how many hours do you have left to actually shoot a scene?
Well, no, because the first day it was only to try the makeup.
Oh,
And then they left it on. So when I went to shoot, I had it on and they will just retouch. So when I was on set, they were just retouching, but the makeup was already there. So it would smear overnight, but not as much. And then I got sick by the end of it. But, I don't know if you remember, there was a Bond girl that died from body painting. But no, they left like a hole in the back for the skin could breathe. But even though I still got sick, but thank God, no, not as bad. And then that's why for the Mummy too, I said, no way, I'm not getting that paint again. And we used a bodysuit.
and well, just out of curiosity, so you had to wear it overnight. How many days?
Yeah.
When were you allowed to take it off?
No, I didn't. I
For,
couldn't. I think about 10 days.
for 10 days, you wore the makeup.
Yes, I did. And it was really funny. We were going to you go to restaurants at night and now I know what it feels like to have a full-on tattoo. People look at me weird. It was definitely uncomfortable, but it was worth it. It really, it was an idea and we were able to execute it. And, I modeled for so many years that I was used to that kind of work. And then once you forget about it, it just really helps you with the character even more than in the Mummy too. I had the bodysuit, but there was nothing like actually having the paint.
When I watched The Mummy as a kid, I always felt, I felt a lot of sympathy for Anck-su-namun. Like I get the sense she did not want to be the Pharaoh's mistress. And so did you and Arnold, in your minds, were you playing this maybe more as the heroes of your own love story when you did your scenes together?
100%. There was never a doubt that, these two people were in love, and it is a love story. Never anything else. The only thing is, like in the case of Anck-su-namun or Mila, she made the wrong choices of how to go about fighting for this love. But she was fighting for love, nothing else, like any other love story. Oh, the original story is that, yeah, she's on this relationship, but she falls madly in love with Arnold, and she wants to be with him. That's it. I mean, she found her soulmate.
I always thought, and I'd be curious if you view especially in the second one, if this is just kind of a story of two rival love stories between yourself and Arnold on one end and Brendan and Rachel on the other.
That's a really good question. I've never been asked that before. For sure. They say that competition is the key to survival. Mm-hmm. They say, even in relationships, there has to be some sort of competition, healthy competition. And that's what keeps it going. I do absolutely think there is some rivalry. These people were fighting for love. It's mm-hmm. either you or us. We know what's at stake. The stakes are really high. In my mind, there was never any doubt that we were going to make it in the second Mummy. I still wonder sometimes why she made the choice that she made at the end. Maybe because I thought there will be another Mummy for it to fix it. And that gave me permission to make a mistake.
Were you pleasantly surprised when the offer came to have not only come back for the sequel, but to have a much bigger role in part 2?
I was so honored. I was so surprised. I was so happy. I couldn't believe when I read the role, and I couldn't believe that I was going to play 2 roles. I mean, how fun. Rachel always used to say, I wish I was playing your role. It's always so much better to play the bad girl. It's true. When you play the evil bad characters, it's so much fun as an actor. I couldn't believe. And then again, there it goes to, doesn't matter how small things might be, because when you think of the first Mummy, doesn't matter how small things might be, just give it your all, because you never know what can happen. And that was a proof of that.
So you were on Shepperton in the first one, but you were actually in Morocco and on other locations in the sequel, yes?
Yeah, we went to Erfoud, and we also went to Ouarzazate in Marrakesh. We were there for quite a while. A lot of sandstorms. And when these sandstorms will start, we will all have to run into our trailers and just sit there for a long time. And I remember one time specifically that this sandstorm just would not go away. And it's not like we had cell phones and we could be texting. We're just there. So it was that I remember being really scared this one time because it felt like and then I kept thinking, well, I don't think the trailer is going to fly away. Worst can happen is that he falls to the side, because this thing was moving like crazy. Rachel lived in London, so she became my pal. We had to train a lot for the fight scenes. The fight scenes, it was never really supposed to be us fighting. That's why they had designed those masks that we have when we fight. But Rachel and I got so into it. We became very competitive because we became good friends, and we became so competitive that we ended up doing the fights ourselves. The only thing I didn't do was the backflip. And we were working at the beginning, before we started shooting, we would work for hours a day. That's why we take the masks off, so they can show at least that it's us. I think that's why the scene is so powerful and so magical, and it's become such a classic fight scene in history. We trained. It was wonderful. It was so cool.
You mentioned you became friends with Rachel. What was it like being able to work with her and Arnold as well for a lot more on the second one?
I didn't really talk to her very much on the first Mummy. Mm-hmm. We sort of became friends on the Mummy too. I think it became more when we went to London, because we were training for the fight.
Both movies have obviously their reputations and affection has only grown over the years. But do you recall what you first thought when you saw just the first one completed? I'm going to guess at the premiere.
I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh my gosh, for a Venezuelan girl, indigenous, suddenly you see yourself in a big film like that. It felt big, but it felt happy because it's a family film. So it felt like a celebration. I brought my whole family. I just had a good time. I could not believe that I was a part of it. I think it was a surprise for everyone, especially in the studio. They didn't expect the movie to be this big.
Were you surprised at all by the tone of the movie? Because I know some people, Brendan has said in the past he didn't know what movie he was making.
Yes, me too. I didn't, and also remember, I was not there for that long for the first one. So I didn't really know what to expect. I was surprised by the tone of the movie. It was nothing that I expected. I didn't really expect anything because I was just so grateful to have been a part of it that just whatever it was going to be, I was already so grateful.
What has that legacy meant for you over the last 25 years?
Well, it makes me feel very blessed to be a part of something that symbolizes family and hope and unity, because it shows on the holidays. This movie is on all the time, and I am a part of that. That it's like the universe allow me to participate into something that will always be with us, and I was there. My daughter, she hears about it from other kids at school. I think she's now seen Mommy too. She's a teenager right now, so she had to play cool. She's like, oh, whatever. But I think deep inside, she has a lot of admiration because a lot of her friends talk about it. Her friends her age do look at it, do watch it. She has to play cool, but I think eventually she'll go back to being a fan again. Most important, I meet people with extraordinary stories and what the Mommy has symbolized for them. And how I met this girl at a Comic-Con beautiful girl, just gorgeous girl. And she said that she suffers from terrible anxiety. And before she was diagnosed, she used to hide in the back of the couch when the family was watching the Mummy, and she would recite the lines of the movie. And then when she started going to therapy, she told the therapist, he asked, how do you calm yourself down? And she said, I recite the lines of Anck-su-namun. And he said, okay, well, if that's what calms you down, I want you to do that for life. Just do it. And she still does it. So imagine when someone says something like that to you, that you just don't know the repercussion of the amount of effort that you put into something. For me, it's like if I had to do that movie just to help that one girl, oh my gosh, then that means not only the most extraordinary experience, but that was worth the effort. And I hear stories like that all the time. So that's how important this is for me.
There have been murmurings since Brendan won his Oscar about resurrecting the franchise. Do you think there should be another one?
I think so. I think why not? They're doing sequels to a lot of other, important films. So why not? I think it'll be a great reunion.
I did want to ask if there's anything else you really, when you think about these movies, you would like to share.
I think, David, we are in a time in our lives right now where things are divided. People are divided. There's so much confrontation, and to be able to be a part of a film that brings us together, doesn't matter what your points of views are. I think we need more than that. And I'm sure anybody who's watching this show, if you have those divisions within your household, even with yourself, then watch the film and invite them over so we can try to find some unity amongst this very divided time.
Could you just mention maybe what you're working on right now or these days?
Yeah, well, many things, but I have a couple of projects that are coming out later in this year. One named No Address about homelessness, and I also run a foundation. That we're sending a ton of humanitarian aid to Venezuela. That, as you know, is a country with 30 million people, and 8.5 million people have already fled the country. So if you want to visit Wayuutaya, Wayuutaya, or just Google me, it will come up, and look at our work. That'd be wonderful, because we're growing, and try to do programs that have to work on sustainability and helping people to stay in their land, because at the end, nobody really wants to leave. People want to be there. But if you don't have the conditions, then it's tough. You got to find a way to protect your family, and not protect your family, but to give conditions so your family can flourish, and even yourself. So the foundation is definitely taking a long time right now for me.
The Mummy returns.